just want to say, you guys already know this. Debbie Dingell is the hardest working person in Congress. We love her. She is everywhere all the time. So Debbie, come on up.
So good morning. I guess you can probably tell where I'm going next. And I called Teresa and Mary and said, I'm not going to be able to make this meeting because the parade's at 10. And then I thought, I don't have to be at the beginning of the parade. I'll race there and find them someplace downtown. But I was writing the introduction to my newsletter this morning, and we have had my district work period has been such a period of highs and lows. So, I mean, I some of you maybe go green, go white, but it's just great to have a basketball championship and something that people can be happy about. But one of the reasons I felt like it was really important to get here, because I don't think look, I'm not even hiding it. I try to be polite, but there's no point in being polite. Our president is crazy. But I never thought that I would hear a president of the United States ever, let alone in my lifetime, say that he was going to destroy civilization forever. And as I was everywhere I went, people were like me. I was scared to death. I mean, look, he hates me. And I know I'm supposed to wear that as a symbol of pride. And I do, except I'm going to tell you, it is life-threatening when Donald Trump hates you. And that is one of the things that's really horrific, is the way that we are normalizing political violence. And that there are people here that think it is, okay to threaten to kill somebody, and quite frankly, are people that are killing people. And we got to stand up against hate wherever and whenever we see it. But everywhere I went last week, people were really scared to death that we were going to see a nuclear war. And I was too. And it is very frightening to me that somebody with this mentality, I don't know the words to use. I'll get better if I'm on TV, but it has access to nuclear weapons and isn't afraid to use them. And that's what's very frightening. Now, we all sat, I was talking to my colleagues, I was talking on the thread. And then this is one of the reasons it's really important to talk to you, because I know people are saying, what about Amendment 25? What about impeachment? And we did have we've had a couple of meetings this week as caucus. Jamie Raskin ran a meeting yesterday afternoon for us to talk about both the 25th Amendment and impeachment. And I know one of my colleagues said it's not the time for impeachment. I'm going to tell you, I have no problem with the Judiciary Committee starting the process of investigating the mental health of this president and the actions that are happening. I say that in the letter I'm sending to my constituents. I have verbalized that to Hakeem, Catherine. And, a year ago, the first time Al Green offered an impeachment amendment, Hakeem was like, we don't have the votes. It's not the time. That's what people will focus on. But when we had the second vote, which it was last fall, I could not vote to table. You cannot, with all of the actions that you're seeing, vote to table that. We didn't win, but I think you're going to see Jamie's which I'm going to be one of the original co-sponsors on. It's more than you want to know, but if somebody wants, we could do a webinar or something on it at some point. But we were going through, I did not realize the 25th Amendment was actually written by Birch Bayh, and it was a very interesting, I was glad we did this yesterday, because it was never formal in the Constitution that if a president died, however it happened, that the vice president was actually formerly, like the president of the United States. I didn't know that. And then he went through, the cabinet, but then Bayh had put into it the appointment of a commission, because I mean, I said on the call yesterday, like if you ever had a cabinet that was so unable to be objective and was so owned, and I said, like now, that there would be a commission that would be able to vote on the issue as well. Jamie introduced a bill, the first Trump administration. It didn't go anywhere. He talked about, I mean, I actually hadn't focused on this until yesterday. I mean, I'd focused on it because, we did have, whatever we think about the DeVosses, Betsy DeVos was ready to invoke the 25th Amendment uh, uh, at the end of her term. Now, I could say a whole lot of things, but, the first Trump administration at least had people that cared about our country and were trying to rein him in. And there were, honestly, there were good people that took the job because they knew he needed to be reined in and whose lives have never been the same. And well, it's the truth. There are no good people in the Trump administration. There is not a cabinet member that I trust in this administration, and nobody will stand up to Donald Trump and say no. And that every leader needs to have people in their inner circle that will tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. So Jamie tried to reintroduce it during the Biden administration. He thought maybe he could get Republicans because it was Biden. They did not. He is going to reintroduce the bill next week to get this commission established. I will be one of the originals with him. I don't know that we can get it passed through the Senate, but we only need 4 votes right now in the House of Representatives to pass many things. So I'm sure that there are, we can do, look, you all need to know that people like us are looking at both the 25th Amendment and are looking at potential impeachment. And I don't think we can give them a bye. And I think we've got to hold them accountable. But again, remember that if you're they'll go after me too, but if you're a Republican and do it, their lives are threatened. And there are members that are afraid of that. I don't think you should be serving in government if you're afraid that someone's going to kill you. You got to be able and willing to do what is right for the people that you serve and for your country, period. That's what and that, it's got to be an impeachment. Unless, what you did have. So what you all really need to be thinking about is what's happening to our allies in the world order. NATO doesn't trust us. I talk to I talk to the Arab ambassadors all the time. There are a lot of women Arab ambassadors. They're great. I mean, Rima, I've known her. Princess Haifa was Rima's mother, who's the ambassador to Saudi Arabia now, and I've known her since she was little. And she and I have very, very, very serious conversations. And I got to be careful about what I say. But Dina, who's the ambassador to this country from Jordan, and the ambassador from Kuwait, they're all women. And I am talking to them on a regular basis. But you need to understand you do understand because we are an informed group here. They're looking at us. We're not a reliable ally. Canada is the most important ally we have. They're right. Our district, the 6 districts north of them. What he has done to Canada, how Carney feels about us is at Carney. Now I'm working really hard. I called Doug Ford, who's the governor of Ottawa, like every 2 weeks to keep him calm. And I had a group of Canadian I actually meet with Canadian parliamentarians once a week. But a group of them came in and said, can you get other members to do what you're doing? Can you show Canada that they still have friends in the United States? This is really, in the Gordie Howe Bridge, I'm working that every single day. Stay tuned. You're going to start to hear things. I'm sure that's when Trump's going to go after me again. But Gordie Howe Bridge needs to open. He should not be.
Sparks an idea in my head. if we recognize that all of our allies and many other nations throughout the world are really getting screwed over by Trump as much as we are, maybe, would it not be in the best interests of the United States if a coalition of Americans were to send word to our allies and other nations, encouraging them to get together and as a whole try to do something about Trump as a war criminal?
So the United Nations may get some resolutions that are calling, but if he had bombed Iran, that would have been something that I think would trigger. What I think you all don't see every day is the number of legislators that are meeting with the heads of the NATO countries. And I mean, a lot of the NATO countries, and you also understand it's going to take years to fix the destruction this man has done. We're only in year one. We have 3 more years. But there are, in different ways, some of that is happening already. As I said, I talk to Canada regularly. I'm one of the ones that's talking to the Mideast regularly, and that's what people are trying to do. There are Republican senators who know he cannot unilaterally pull us out of NATO. That the Senate votes on that treaty, and there are Republican senators that are not afraid to speak up. But one of the problems is the Republican senators who have been targeted for stepping up. A couple are leaving. Senator Kennedy in Louisiana, who I don't agree with on a lot of things, but has on health care, voted for impeachment, Trump is totally targeting him. And it's not clear whether he'll win the primary. Now, Tom Massey, who Republicans don't even count as a Republican anymore, they have poured millions of dollars into defeat him in Kentucky, and I think he is going to win. So Tom Massey's always a vote on many of the, not always, I should be careful, but Tom Massey is frequently a vote with us on all of the key issues. I'm just going from, I'm answering your questions and just talking about what's happening in Washington right now, which is, so we are all very focused on what's happening on the White House and how do we rein them in and what are our abilities to do things. You got to have the votes. So I'm going to give one editorial comment before I go back to maybe a little more substance. We have to win the House of Representatives. We have to have a stop. That is and he knows it. It's why he is going to try to do everything he can to keep people from voting, to an executive order saying mail order ballots aren't okay. We're that we're taking that to the Supreme Court, but people can't be afraid to go to the polls or to vote by mail, and all of us have to be an important part of ensuring that we protect the vote in November and that we turn out the votes. And what I will say to people in Washtenaw County and Ann Arbor is the 6th district has more Democratic votes in the state of Michigan than any other congressional district. Alyssa Slotkin, she doesn't appreciate it, but Alyssa Slotkin would not be United States Senator without all of you. If we had not turned out the votes in Washtenaw and the 6th, she only won by 3,000 votes. We increased the Democratic vote by that much. And I'm very worried about this Senate race. And we got competitive congressional races. I can't decide whether I think I do worry about it. I can't decide if I am worried about the independent run in this sense, that it keeps people from voting straight Democratic Party ticket, and it hurts Democratic candidates down the ticket. So we got to worry about that. But I am very worried about every statewide race. Mm-hmm.
That he's probably crazy, and his behavior for January 6th, and the fact that he seems to have declined. So if he loses, or the Republicans lose in November, I think it's likely that the behavior will be even worse in some ways. So are you guys getting prepared for that? And also this thing about blocking mail votes. So if that goes through or it can't get through the courts in time, is the party prepared to get people on the ground?
The party here, the governor here, ours, but I'm also working very much at the national level on what we are doing to protect the vote. And there are a lot of very good people. It will go all the way to the Supreme Court. And you have to say, this man, he can vote by mail when, in Mar-a-Lago, but he's trying. But people need to understand what the SAVE Act is, what this effort to limit mail, it's voter suppression. It's total voter suppression. And we are. I want you to know that I've talked to the governor about it 5 times. I got to be careful what I'm saying here, but we have a meeting this week. All hands are on deck because we're not stupid and he's not hiding what he wants to do. Mm-hmm.
Mike Johnson.
He needs to get some balls. I didn't say that to him. Over his head. Listen, I haven't said that to him yet. I mean, but the problem is Mike Johnson's totally dependent on Donald Trump for his job. I'm not sure that Mike Johnson will be speaker next year, but a lot of good that does us now. But we're not bringing bills to the floor that we need to be bringing. But that's why there have been more discharge petitions. And we are starting. So discharge petitions is when you get bills discharged. So you have to have 218 signatures. So we almost every time, we have one right now, get every Democrat. And then I'm known as Hakeem is now calling me the Republican whisperer. Because I got into a huge fight with somebody who was trying to undercut us on the health care and the Affordable Care Tax Credit. And this person was a member who said they'll never sign. I had the people I knew would sign it. And I was the Debbie Dingle you all know and hopefully love that can be tenacious and bitchy when she has to. And I said, Hakeem, I will fucking deliver those votes and I know who they are. And if you bail out on this, that's it. I'm done. And his chief said to me, well, you won, but it's never going to happen. And I have this, I'm keeping it for life. The text I said, for all you doubters, for all you shits that told me it would never happen, it just did. So, and there are enough. I've said to all of you, relationships matter. And I talk to everybody. I get killed for going to, actually, you wouldn't believe how much grief I've gotten for going to Hash Bash. But I've gone to Hash Bash since 2019. And I get up and say, I haven't smoked marijuana, still haven't smoked marijuana. And they yell, but we're still trying. But I talk to people. Relationships matter. And I know I know people who are scared. I know people who are, and they're really worried about what's happening to our country. And I work with them. And when we get our Dems there, I go to them and they sign. And we've had more discharge petitions discharged than in the history of this country. It's not a great way to do it. It is not ideal. There's nothing ideal about the world we're living in right now. I'm not giving up. I got a message for you. I'm not afraid to be me. I'm not ever going to give up. I'm a fighter who is going to, and none of you, but sometimes these younger generations think they know everything. We love you, and we need a representative government needs everybody at the table. That's what representative government is. But sometimes you need people that aren't afraid, that have been around long enough and are seasoned and know what you got to do. And I ain't going anywhere. As long as you'll reelect me. I could have gone more, but I think I'll answer your questions and then they'll find the parade. I love
Good
a
morning.
parade. Good morning.
With what he's been saying about taking out Iran,
Iran.
what's wrong with demanding his resignation, demanding that he step down?
Well, people have said that, but it's not going to, it's like we have 2 options and you got to win. But one is the 25th Amendment, because I actually do think there's signs of, but you got to have somebody willing to invoke. The bill that we're introducing this week builds on actually having a commission and what the steps would be to do the 25th. Otherwise, you got to impeach. And I said to somebody yesterday, I don't agree with you that now is not the time to impeach. I think we should be instigating, we should be investigating and building the case. But he's not going to, we need to get rid of him. And the only way to do that is impeachment. He's been impeached twice. Half the impeachments that have occurred in the 250 years of this country have been Donald Trump. And you got to get the Senate. Now, we got to keep the Senate seat, my friends. So you can all support different candidates, but we got to come together. And we cannot let Mike Rogers, who has gone total mega, we have to keep that Senate seat. And what we got to try to do is get, there's a chance we could win the Senate. And that's another thing that we got to do, because if we get a Democratic Senate, we can try to get the votes over there. We can get them. I believe that after November, I think it will be hard before November but I think the Judiciary Committee can start the work now, or we should be doing the work. But I think after November, we'll be able to get the votes to impeach him in the House. I think we probably will impeach him in the House. But remember, that vote for impeachment's happened several times, and it goes to the Senate, where it dies.
Then does that not make it necessary to also remove J.D. Vance? And
Well, you'd
at
have
the
to
same
do a set.
time-
First of all, it's 2/3 vote on impeachment. So that's a problem too. But J.D. Vance would then become president. So you'd have to start separate impeachment process.
Both.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not,
Team Jeffries, I guess.
we gotta, I'm not against it. We got to build the case. That's why I think it's very important that it start in the judiciary now, that they be doing the investigations and the.
Hi, Amy Grudem. To the point of impeachment versus the 25th Amendment, the 25th Amendment relies on his cabinet to vote him out, as opposed to Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution, which allows for impeaching due to treason and bribery, et cetera, high crimes, misdemeanors. I think that would be
That's all, really the only tool right now.
right. And I
Until,
think that's a more important, I think it's a more, especially because it encompasses the ability to take out all of his cabinet. So you don't have to rely on their backup.
but that's what this bill and I'll send it to you to send to people. Jamie is I actually hadn't focused on Jamie's bill until this session yesterday, where during the first Trump administration, the original bill that passed on the 25th Amendment did have the establishment of a commission, which has never been appointed. So right now, you are correct. Impeachment's the only, but we need to get the other tool. So, because as Jamie said, the reason they put the commission in, but then never finalized it or appointed it, was in case you had a cabinet that was totally loyal to, like the cabinet we have right now, with nobody who gives a shit about our country and are totally, so.
I would also make the point that my mother had Alzheimer's, so I know what dementia looks like.
A lot of people think this.
And there is no question that man has cheese has slipped off his cracker a while ago, probably even in his first term. But, yes, he is a psychopath.
Unfortunately. Well, I think we may have both. I mean, the country elected him. Yeah, twice.
We need to audit the vote.
Look, I'm doing what we can now. And as all of you know, he didn't like me the first term. He has gone after me. I'm the only elected official you know who has written an op-ed for the New York Times that it's why it matters to stand up to Donald Trump. And I'm still here. Thank you. Anyway, don't give up. We got to stay engaged. We got to listen. We got to be resilient. We got to win in November. And as I'm saying, my colleagues, I even said it at the DNC this week. Go blue.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie Dingle. Yes. Thank God for Debbie in Washington. Thank us for Debbie in Washington, right? One of the bright spots of this week for me was Melania's statement to the press. Wasn't that a stitch? It's like, I'm not guilty. I never did anything. Like, what are you talking about? Get that back in the news. I like that. Um, yeah. So we all know how dangerous it is to go against Trump. And I'm sure you all have heard about the DOJ lawsuit against our county board of commissioners. Yeah. Our county sheriff, and our county prosecutor. Yeah. Which, immigration for staying, yes, for protecting immigrants in the county. It's in the, sorry. And well, of course, but yeah, right, for sure. But anyway, I don't think it'll go anywhere like so much of what this DOJ does and attempts to do. But as we all know, just being targeted costs a fortune, takes an enormous amount of time. It is an assault on our rights. So I don't know if you want to, you might want to write to your county commissioner and give them an attaboy and attagirl and write to the sheriff. There you go. There you go. I'll take that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is a badge of honor. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Kathy. Again. I just want y'all to know, I'm so glad you're here. We need everybody. We need everybody on the ground. As Debbie said, honestly, even after the 25th Amendment, I'm sorry, any cabinet can call the 25th Amendment. This one obviously will not. But even after that, both houses of Congress have to vote by, I think it's a 2/3 majority, right, Ryan? Is it 2/3? So it's like, there's no way to get rid of this guy. It's just incredible, except us. We have to, as Debbie was saying, we have to vote. We have to get the opposition into power. It is so immensely frustrating to just feel like we're being battered every single day, every hour, and we're powerless, which we kind of are. We don't have our hands on the levers of power yet, but I want to talk with you about some of the things that the WCDP is doing to change that. And you guys, Sharon, somebody go out there and get Sharon. Mary, you want to get Sharon? Thanks. Sharon Simonton is our volunteer coordinator, and she has some specific pitches, but I just want you to know precinct organizing is really the core of the Democratic, of any party's work, right? But it's certainly the core of our work this cycle. And precinct organizing, a precinct is the smallest unit of government. It's about 2,000 voters in a precinct. You probably don't know what precinct you're in, or it's very possible you don't know what precinct you're in. To find out all about who represents you and how to vote, including how to get on the permanent mailed ballot list, go to mivoter.org. You can do it on your phone right now. Favorite that site, mivoter.org. We are building that out. I want you to know that that's a statewide tool. Anywhere in the state, you can put in you put in your street address. It's not saved. You can put in your street address and find out where you vote, find out where your drop boxes are, find out who you're currently represented by, and when God, it's so our primary is so late, but come August, towards the end of August, you'll be able to go in there. Actually, because of what MDP. Anyway, let's call it September 3rd, right after Labor Day. You'll be able to go in there and find your Democratic Party endorsements. So, it's really easy to vote straight ticket. When you're a Democrat, just vote straight ticket, and that part's solid. But the down ballot is the hard part, right? Where there are no parties. So it's like, well, what do I do here? I personally have for years didn't vote in down ballot races because I didn't want to do any harm, and I didn't have time to do the research. Well, the Democratic Party does all that work for you now, and not only do we put out the voter guide. How many of you have seen a voter guide or helped deliver voter guides? Yeah, fabulous. That's great. We put out about 40,000 voter guides every election cycle, major election cycle. And now we are going to mail more of them, actually, because how many have delivered voter guides and gotten like quarter-mile driveways and stuff, or locked gates and stuff? Exactly. We're always refining the list. How many of you got the red voter guide last year from the Republicans? Yeah, they mailed that thing. Total copy of ours, total copy, which is, homage. Um, and they mailed it to me, so I mean, like, they were not doing any fine cutting. And I'm really arguing, or not arguing, but I'm thinking with the precinct organizing committee and the MI voter team, and Jen Burris is the chief of the voter guide development team. Thank you, Jen. This cycle, you guys, you're distracting me. Stop it. Now I forget what I was going to say. Well, come on up and talk. This is about what we're going to be doing. But anyway, I'm working with Janet's chair of precinct organizing, co-chair. I was co-chair with Janet for several years before I became chair of this whole thing. And one of the things we were always thinking about is how far down, how far into Republican numbers do we want to go for outreach? And I'm thinking we want to go way lower than we have before, because I think there's a lot of people we can get down there. And we want to not suppress, but we want to decrease the Republican vote, obviously, and increase our Democratic vote every cycle. But I just will say, and Debbie credits the six as a whole, but I want to say Washtenaw County turned out more Democratic Party votes in 2024 than any other county in the state, except for Wayne, which is 5 times our size, but we turned out 2.5 times. They only turned out 2.5 times more than we did. So we turned out more than Oakland County, which is 3 times our size. So we're a powerhouse, but we can do better. We left something like 50,000 Dem-leaning votes on the table, and 48,000 Republicans voted in Washtenaw County. So we are mobilizing now, and starting to canvass now, and working with the One Campaign, which is now called One Team Michigan, now, in order to suppress or decrease, not suppress, that's a Republican strategy, decrease the Republican vote and increase the Democratic vote. And everything we're doing is about that. Okay, Janet.
Okay. Thank you so much to everyone who has been a deliverer of voter guides, but until now we have not attempted to really organize ourselves at canvassing. A lot of people, how many people did canvass last time with the One Campaign or whatever? Yeah, a lot less than are happy to deliver, and everyone understands that. However, it is the conversations that really make a difference. And I know that for the One Campaign people, there was a lot of frustration because of that deeping, often be going down into lower, possibly Republican category. But it's because to be able to do that, you have to be prepared. However, I think for our canvas, we are not really going to try to do that. We are going to do that with the guide itself, but we are going to focus on, in particular, people who have voted previously, who are more Dem-leaning, and who are and did not vote in the very last election, as well as those who are not on the permanent absentee voter list. So we're coming to the door with a proposal to make your life easier by getting on that list, which you're not already on, right? In most cases. And
Get on the PMB.
yeah.
PMB, your ballot just comes to you 45 days before the election. You have all the time in the world to do research and to decide what,
and you could take it to the polls. You can vote it at the early voting. You can take it into the precinct on election day. You can participate any way you want, but you have it there. And so you don't forget, partly, or you can try not to. I have forgotten once that I had to go get another one, but anyway, so we are hoping to get people out, talking to neighbors, it will be focused on right around you to begin with. Then we might need to be sending people to farther areas where we have fewer people. But beginning mid-May, we do hope to have people out with a little flyer and a good list of who we should be talking to. So stay tuned, and you can also always reach out to us at Precinct Organizing Committee, abbreviated POC, at watchnotems.org.
A big volunteer need. And see that guy in the hat over there? What kind of hat is that, Dirk? It's a cheap hat. It looks like a dock worker's hat or something. There you go. If you are doing volunteer work for the party and are not a precinct delegate, why not? You can become a precinct delegate with one vote, your own vote, your kids' vote, your spouse's vote. No kidding. You get, I mean, if we get into competition, you might need 2 or 3. But seriously, it's great to be a precinct delegate. Your name's on the ballot. It's, you get perks from the party, including just an increased status. Dirk is here. It's super easy too. It's easy to get elected. It's easy to file. Dirk Mayhew is here to, you have the affidavit, yeah, with affidavits and his notary public stamp. Okay, so he'll get you going. All right, anybody see him after the meeting? And I'm looking at our timer and I'm like, why haven't you stopped us? So I want to keep going. Sharon, real quick. This is Cheryl. Petitions, Mop Up Michigan. Come on up. And Sharon's our incredibly hardworking volunteer coordinator.
Good morning. I'd like to invite any of you who are interested in volunteering to send me an email, a call, a text. We'd love to talk to you and find out what sort of a project or committee would be a good fit for you. We're particularly in need of people with social marketing, writing experience, and also experience on social media, posting and creating content. And likewise, our precinct organizing committee and visibility both always need volunteers, and we'd love to have you involved. Please, send me a text or an email, and we'll get back to you. I also want to put in a pitch for MMOP, which is the petition that will end money in politics for utility companies and corporations that have more than $250,000 in state contracts. And let's push this over the edge. The deadline's coming up. And I also have extra petitions and clipboards, so please see me. And if you signed after November, please sign again, because they've started, they moved the framework to get it passed. So let's all pitch in on the next 3 weeks and get this over the hill. Thanks.
If you signed before last November, what? Before Thanksgiving? Okay, thanks, Kelly. Yeah, yeah, because they had to start over.
Let's get this done and get it on the ballot.
And you guys, if you don't know if you've signed, just sign it again. It's okay. You can sign it more than once. It's important to sign this. The Republicans have 2 offensive ballot measures on the state ballot this cycle, which is, one of them is the stupid SAVE Act, which is really, Debbie was right, it's a voter suppression act, but it is specifically savage against women. If you changed your name when you got married, which a large majority of women do, and it doesn't match what's on your birth certificate, you have to get a birth certificate and a marriage certificate and a divorce certificate if you're I mean, it is insane. It is totally anti-women voting. Okay. Mary, come on up. Mary's the chair of the Ann Arbor Dems.
Good morning, everybody. Mary Hall Cham, and I am so glad to see so many of our Ann Arbor Dems here, and especially from our executive board. So executive board, please raise your hands so that we can have you at our May 9th meeting. The reason that you're here this morning is because we're having a joint meeting. This is our usual meeting day, but our good friends, the Washtenaw Dems, because of Easter, they needed to have a meeting with us. So I am so glad to see so many of you out here this morning. Come on out and starting in May. and we are going to have wonderful programmer debates. I want you to get an opportunity to meet a lot of the candidates that you see here up close and personal. And one of them, I think, is our next Supreme Court Justice, who is already a Supreme Court Justice Hood, will be at our May meeting. So again, Mary Hall Cham, please come out, and thank you for coming to our new office here in Washtenaw County. Teresa?
Thanks, Mary. All right. As you can see from the agenda, we have a packed program. Ann Arbor Tenants Union, Sheila. We have 5 minutes for Sheila. Sheila, you here? Is Sheila online? Is Sheila on Zoom? No, Sheila? Okay. Good. We're 5 minutes less behind. Kelly, we'd love to see Sheila, but I mean, I'm sorry to have taken up so much time. Kelly Tebay is a candidate for the Michigan State Board of Trustees, and Kelly also has 5 minutes. Here you go.
Hello, everybody. Kelly Tebay Zemke. I'm a current Michigan State University board member, but I live here in Washtenaw County, so I promise I'm not trying to troll all of our U of M fans this morning. But I'm running for re-election. I ran for Michigan State Board of Trustees for the first time in 2018, and I ran because of what was going on with Michigan State, with Larry Nassar. As a 2-time alumni, it was really hard to watch what was going on at my alma mater. And I think a lot of us sort of woke up about how important these university boards were that year, because we saw what the failure of the board leadership can do to a university. And so, I was talking to a lot of my friends here in Ann Arbor, and I said, I hope they find good people to run for these positions. I don't understand what qualifies someone to run for these boards. It seems like a lot of them were, sort of wealthy donors and sort of chosen for these positions instead of actually running. And one of my friends, for those that know Travis Radina, he was like, I don't know anybody that loves MSU more than you do. Why don't you run? And I was like, that's silly. I'm not why would anyone vote for me? I'm young and and he was like, you should try it. And so I did. And that year, there were 22 people that ran for 2 nominations at the convention for Michigan State University. And so I worked my tail off. I put 17,000 miles on my car in the month of July in 2018. And here I am. It has been a very, very troubling and difficult 7 years. I'm not going to lie. It has not been easy to be a board member at Michigan State, as I'm sure a lot of you have seen in the newspaper. But I really feel like we've made a lot of progress. And a lot of the things that I vowed to work on, I did. And I feel really good about what I've done and my leadership on the board. One of the things that, obviously I cared about was what was happening with the leadership, our culture at Michigan State around sexual assault, around how we were treating our survivors. We've made a lot of progress. We've invested a lot into the office that houses the relationship violence and sexual misconduct reporting. We've invested a lot in our mental health supports for our students. We've also built the Center for Survivors, which is becoming a model for universities across the country. It's a place that survivors can go. They can get medical treatment, counseling treatment, navigators to help with the reporting process, whether they do or don't want to report, whether they want to involve the police or not. It's sort of that one place that they can go that's safe on campus for them to get all the support that they need. Another thing that I ran on that I thought was really important that I think is going to continue to be a conversation, but at least I feel like Michigan State's made a little bit of progress, is affordability. We all know that this is a constant conversation we're having about the value proposition for higher education. It's been on attack, but also our continuing increase in tuition. I'm not going to lie, we've had to do that at Michigan State, but for the first 4 years I was on the board, we didn't raise tuition because that was something that Brianna Scott and I, who's also running for re-election, it was really important to us to try to do the best that we could to make sure we weren't increasing costs for our students. However, when COVID came, as you can imagine, budget constraints happened. We put a lot of our employees, they took a lot of sacrifices for us. Then we had to raise tuition in order to try to get them back to being whole. One of the things that we were able to do, though, that was a campaign promise that I made. I watched what was going on at U of M, which I will give credit where credit is due. They had a program called the Go Blue Guarantee, that if you were a Michigan student with a household income of $65,000 or less, that you could come to Michigan tuition free. Michigan State did not have a program like that, but we do now. And one of the things that if I'm lucky enough to get reelected, I want to increase the support that Spartan Advantage offers, and to not just have tuition, but also room and board, because we know the cost of living is equally a barrier to students coming to college than just the tuition cost. Another thing that I'm very proud that we were able to do at Michigan State is that we passed a resolution in December of 2021 that allowed for administrative neutrality, or called for administrative neutrality and the card check process to be able to be used at Michigan State. allowing it easier for our employees to form collective bargain units. Yes, since then, we have 3 new labor unions on campus, which is really exciting. I mean, it's a large number of staff that have now been added. Our tenured faculty are unionized. Our extension staff, the ones that are all in all 83 counties across the state, they're now unionized. And there's a lot of buzz about increasing the membership to the unions, but also to increase unions on campus. And I think that's one of those things that it allows them to have a voice at the table, because obviously we know that salaries and benefits are so important to our staff and faculty, and the way that they can increase those things and the way that we can get them that support is when they have a voice at the table. And that's really important to me. We have to be able to remain competitive with salaries in order to keep Michigan State the great university that we is, and we've got to be able to recruit new talent into the state of Michigan. And lastly, I'll end with one of the things, if again I'm lucky enough to get reelected, I really want to focus on is how we support our students. We have academic advisors, we have career services, we have a lot of resources across campus, but one thing that we're not good at doing is communicating those resources to students, to making sure they know what they have access to meeting them where they are and help identify issues before they become issues so that we're able to meet them and help them, support them through so they're not just thriving in class, but outside of the classroom too. So I'm Kelly Tebay. I'm running for re-election for Michigan State University along with Brianna Scott, who's also running for re-election. We would love your support on April 19th. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, note the April 19th date. Everybody knows, I hope. If you don't, and you're have been a member for 30 days, yeah, that's still okay. We elect the members of the party elect the university trustees for all 3 state universities on April 19th at our state convention in Lansing. If you don't know about it, go to our website. And at WashingtonDems.org under vote, there's a whole guide about the April 19th convention. It's in Detroit. It's in Huntington Place in Detroit. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh wait, I want Noah Hood. Justice Hood, come on down. Justice Hood is standing for re-election. Here you go.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Noah Hood, and I am the newest justice on the Michigan Supreme Court. I was appointed by Governor Whitmer last May, and I will be on the ballot along with Chief Justice Kavanaugh this coming November. We are running to stay on the court so that the decisions from our state's highest court remain rooted in facts, rooted in fairness, and rooted in reality. I'm here today for 3 reasons. First, to say thank you. Second, to introduce myself. And third, critically, to ask for your help. Let me start by saying thank you, right? It's a sunny day outside. You could be anywhere else, right? You could be out walking the dog, getting a cup of coffee, whatever you want to do on a Saturday morning, but you have chosen to be here. More critically, you have chosen to stay engaged at a time where there is every reason to check out, when it can be so seductive to fall prey to cynicism and apathy. And for that, I say thank you in our shared struggle for the future. Let me introduce myself. Again, my name is Noah Hood. I've been on the Michigan Supreme Court for the past 10 months, and we have 7 months until Election Day, which means you have 7 more months to decide if you like the job that I am doing. Since joining the court, I've jumped not only into the substantive legal work, our bread and butter, but also the lesser known function of rulemaking. I know from listening to your questions throughout this morning that this is a well-informed group, so I'm certain that many of you are well aware of the pending rule change in our court rules that would prohibit administrative and civil arrests without a judicial warrant in a courthouse. I don't need to explain to this group how critically important that is. I can tell you, based on my experience as a trial judge, based on my experience as a federal prosecutor who worked, among other things, on immigration cases, you do not need to arrest anyone inside of a courthouse to protect the public. It is critical that our victims, our witnesses, any litigant that needs to get into the court to state their case is able to do that without harassment. This is the work that we are doing for you. Thank you. Prior to serving on the Michigan Supreme Court, I served on the Michigan Court of Appeals. And within that capacity, I generated a high volume of written work. Here's why that's important for you as voters. I can't get up here as a judicial candidate and say, look, I'm going to decide this issue this way. Here's my policy platform. Here's my proposals. What I can say is I know how to think about the cases that appear before me. And in fact, there is a track record of how I've decided these cases. You can go on Google, go on your preferred search engine or AI and say, what has Noah Hood said about zoning? What has he said about construction liens? What has he said about search and seizure, or juvenile justice, or the confrontation clause? What has he said about workers' rights? And you will get not only an answer, but you'll get an opinion that, in my experience, is pretty well thought out, okay? Prior to that, I served, well, yeah, I know, up for debate perhaps. Many of those opinions were dissents. So prior to that, I served as a trial judge, right? And my experience was trial work. I was a trial judge in Wayne County Circuit Court. I served for 1 year prior to COVID and 2 years during COVID. I make that distinction because Wayne County is the highest volume general jurisdiction court in this state and is the 5th highest volume court in the United States. What that means is prior to COVID, I was presiding over 1 bench trial or jury trial every single week. In the 10 business days leading up to the COVID shutdown, I tried a jury trial for criminal sexual conduct 1, that's a child rape case, a bench trial for the same charge, and we started that Friday of the shutdown a bench trial on assault with intent to murder. That's in addition to the sentencings, the calendar conferences, suppression hearings, and all the other work that we were doing. And at the COVID shutdown, it screeched to a halt. I watched defendants die in custody, die out on bond. I watched witnesses lose their nerve to testify in those intervening 2 years. And it informs my work on the state's highest court, because the next time something like this happens, we're going to have a real conversation about the costs of citizenship. There's a lot of talk about mask mandates and vaccine mandates, but I did not hear boo about the right to a speedy trial and our obligation to show up for jury duty. That's a conversation we are going to have in the future, and my experience informs that. Before that, I was a federal prosecutor. I worked primarily in fraud, public corruption, and money laundering, but I also prosecuted crimes against children and firearms offenses, including Title 26 firearms. That's machine guns, silencers, and short-barreled rifles. I've been recognized by the FinCEN director for my use of Bank Secrecy Act data and the Secret Service director for my contributions to the service's law enforcement mission. I'm a Detroit native, proud graduate of Cass Tech, Yale College, and Harvard Law School. Look, I said I was going to ask for your help. And with that notice, let me say, each of you represents a community of trust. On election day and the lead up, people are going to ask you, hey, I don't know who to vote for judge. I don't know who to vote for Michigan Supreme Court. I don't know about the nonpartisan section. I need you to tell them, vote for Noah Hood and Megan Kavanaugh. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. That's great. I'm going to thank you, Justice Hood. I'm going to ask our probate court judge candidates to come on down, please, because I want to keep moving fast. I don't see Erica Peresman. Is Erica here? Is Erica outside? Which Janet? Thank you for checking. Yeah, thanks. Erica. Yeah, and do you have her number? Do you have her number? Oh, Erica's number?
Yes.
Do you want to give her a ring? Sorry, I need to say that into the mic. Just find out where she is. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, great. Okay, good. I've got our one of our main topics today is the election security. We're all very concerned about with the threats from, we were talking about, is he crazy? And you know what? I think that obviously he is, but I'm thinking like moral insanity is something we really haven't talked about. And it's like an old category, but moral insanity, he is clearly, completely amoral. Maybe that's moral insanity. He's a psychopath. Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that too. Yeah, Dirk. Thank you, Dirk Mayhew. Yes. That's great. Thanks. That's great to hear. Okay. Not surprising, but great to hear. Is Kim Thomas here? Kim Thomas, are you here? Is Kim Thomas online? On Zoom? No, Kim Thomas. Okay. Okay, that's fine. All right. Look, we're getting closer and closer to time. Correct time. Here you go.
Thank you. My name is Norm Howe. Eli could not be here today. He is in Canada. We let him go to Canada because he promised to come back. But in the meantime, you're going to have to put up with me. And we have the candidates for Washtenaw County probate judge. And Alethia Battles, and if you could just put that up, and Jennifer Lawrence. And thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. Our format today is we're going to initially, I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're going to get 2 minutes apiece to respond to those questions. The yellow card means you've got 30 seconds left. The red card means you're done. And so let me just first of all say I'm going to ask you first of all. So this Washtenaw County probate judge, and I would like to know what is the Washtenaw County probate judge? What's this all about? Why is this important to us? And I'd like to make that kind of a two-part question. If I could ask one of you, I don't care which one, to sort of answer that question in a general basis, what in outline form, 2 minutes. And then I'd like the next one to say kind of like, what would a day in the life of a probate judge be like? And whichever one wants to go with either one.
I think I'll go first. Hello, everybody. My name is Alethia Battles, and I am a candidate for Washtenaw County probate judge. If someone had told me, and I would just a second, that at 10:44 on April 11th of 2026, that I would be standing in front of a room full of people talking about my run for probate judge, I probably would have said, that's as likely as the men's basketball team at the University of Michigan having a parade because they won the NCAA championship. But it has happened. Go Blue. And I am here in front of you asking for your support. So what is the probate court? The probate court handles guardianships, conservatorships, decedent affairs, estate and trust, also the mental health docket. Probate court basically, it assists our most vulnerable individuals, and those who come before the probate court are individuals who are seeking a surrogate decision maker because by some reason of incapacity, whether that's mental health or mental illness, some kind of a physical disability or illness, chronic intoxication, chronic drug use, those individuals are no longer able to make decisions or informed decisions for themselves. And there's someone, an interested party, who has come before the court and basically said, I need to be able to assist this person to make sure that they remain safe, whether that's in their home, whether that's in a different, more structured living situation. And so those are the kinds of cases. Conservatorship similarly addresses issues related to the individual's finances, and someone is asking to be the fiduciary for that individual because if they are not appointed a fiduciary, then their property and their finances, their money will be wasted or dissipated. And so individuals are going before the court because these are incredibly important issues. These are, does that mean I have to stop? Oh, okay. Okay, more to say, but that is in general what the probate court does, and that is what the person who would oversee those cases would be responsible for.
Thank you.
May I go to the next question? Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jennifer Lawrence. This is not the first time I've been in this room. I actually went to Eastern Michigan University and I had an accounting class in this room. This was the College of Business when I attended college here. I am a local Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County resident, and I'm running for this seat because, like Alethia said, this is a very important seat for our community. This seat is for the most vulnerable individuals that you will see in the Washtenaw County court system. One of the questions that Norm had asked was, what would a day in the life of a probate court judge do? And Alethia did a great job of explaining kind of what the different parts of the probate court handle. But one of the things that we need to remember, which is really important, is that the probate court is an integrated court. So in 1997, our legislature made the probate court combined with our circuit court. So typically what happens in the probate court is we have two probate court judges right now. One will handle guardianships, conservatorships. One will handle mental health and decedents' estates. So if you pass away without a will. The other component that is really important that we need to talk about is the integration. Traditionally, our probate court judges have heard criminal cases, civil cases, juvenile cases, and also family law cases. I have been a practicing family law attorney for almost 2 decades, and so the majority of my experience has been in family law litigation and family law cases. However, I've also worked in the criminal courts, the civil courts, and also handled juvenile and probate matters. I think a typical day in a probate court judge's life is going to depend on what the docket looks like. My understanding from what our current docket looks like is our current probate judge has a portion of civil and a portion of guardianships and conservatorships. Some of the things that I would see as a probate court judge would be things like minor children who have settlements, going through a conservatorship, restricted accounts. Like Alethia said, guardians would also be handling people who have incapacitated family members. And these are really tough issues, but they're also not in a vacuum. So we have to think about not only the integration, because there will be overlap between the circuit court as well as the probate court. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to find out who you are. So I would like you to, 2 minutes, introduce yourself and tell us why you would be the best person for this job.
Absolutely. So thank you. So I feel like I'm being blocked by this. So I'm going to step out a little bit. So my name is Alethia Battles. I am an attorney and a clinical social worker here in Ann Arbor. I've lived in Ann Arbor for since I was around 17 years old. So I'm not going to talk math. I'm just going to say it's been a long time. I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else in Washtenaw County. And as a social worker, I've worked at the University of Michigan as a clinical social worker for over 30 years. I've been an attorney in the Office of the General Counsel at the hospital for over 10 years. And the work that I have done on behalf of Michigan Medicine and the people of Washtenaw County is probate. And this is a probate seat. So I just want to make sure that I let you know what my qualifications are as it relates to the probate court and the probate seat. I have filed over 600, 700 petitions for guardianship. That's 600, 700 families in Washtenaw County and in probably about 9 or 10 other counties in this area. I have been before a number of judges and been able to actually watch how it is that judges make decisions about these really important cases. And I've learned a lot. I have the experience, I have the background to serve as your next probate judge. I am again, similar to Justice Hood, proud graduate of Cass Tech in Detroit. Came here, finished my undergrad degree at Eastern, went to U of M, got my master's in social work, and went to the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law for my JD. So I've been doing this work. I'm not afraid of hard work. I started at U of M as a cashier in the cafeteria. I moved from being a cashier to being a unit clerk and sucking up as much information as I could about what families need and how do we treat them. Is it already? Okay. Okay. There's so much more to say.
You will have time to say it.
Thank you. A little bit about myself. As I said before, I was born and raised in Ann Arbor. I grew up in Washtenaw County. Washtenaw County is my home. My journey with the courts actually started about 30 years ago. I was 16 years old and I applied for an internship at the Ann Arbor District Court. And I worked in the civil criminal division there through high school as an intern. That was really where the passion started for me in the court system. I learned so much in seeing how the judges worked. The courts looked a lot different in the 90s. There was no security. We lived in a much different world, but here we are. After I interned for the district court, I became a paralegal after I went to college. I worked in corporate litigation. I worked for Ford. And then at the ripe age of 26, I decided to put myself through law school. And this was important for me because I came from a family where no one in my family had ever been to graduate school. My dad was a union steam fitter. My mom worked at Kmart. So I did not come from a family of lawyers and doctors. So this was something that was a huge decision for me, not only financially, but for my family. And after law school, I focused my career on criminal defense. I worked on capital crimes, including murder cases. After that, I moved back to Ann Arbor, and it was the recession, so I worked at a firm that was doing bankruptcy. And then I started doing general civil practice, including practicing in every single district court in Washtenaw County. I've practiced in every single area of not only the circuit court, but also the probate court. I've done everything from landlord-tenant cases all the way to full-on litigation trials. The reason that this is important for me is that this is my home, this is my community. I work with the public. I've worked with so many people that are in these vulnerable situations, and I really understand the gravity of this. I've served as the bar president for the Washtenaw County Bar Association. I'm the past president of the Women Lawyers Association, and I've really focused my entire life and my career on working through this. And now the time is up. Thank you. And I don't know where Norm went, so I guess I just get to keep going. So, oh, he's back. Sorry.
Well, sorry, you're done. Great, thank you very much. So I have a question. There is something called an extreme risk protection order. And I would like you to explain that. My understanding is that there is some concerns from Second Amendment issues there with people that may not be present at the time that these orders are given out. And if you could explain some of the issues, how you weigh one versus the other.
So I'll start and then I'll hand it over to Jennifer. So an extreme risk protective order is for individuals who have been determined to have some risk of safety or harm and who might be in the possession of a firearm. It would allow law enforcement to remove that firearm and to remove that threat. I think that, again, when we talk about laws and ordinances, what we're talking about is trying to keep people safe. And that has to be the paramount, that has to be the very top priority for any rules, any laws that are set. It's the protection and the safety of the not only the individuals, but the individuals in the community as well. And so I believe that this ordinance is a way to try again and remain and to keep people safe. I'm not saying that everything that we do, and not we, I didn't create the ordinance, but I think that what we do is try to keep people safe. And at the end of the day, that's what's the most important. And sometimes it's the most vulnerable individuals who don't have, who don't appreciate the risk that they are putting themselves and others at. And so this is one kind of mechanism, one tool to try and reduce that risk and to keep people safe. Again, we don't get it right all the time, but that was I believe, the intent.
I'll just expound on that a little bit. As someone who's done personal protection orders and worked with domestic violence survivors, the ERPO law, extreme risk protection order, also known as the red flag law, is something that has been a huge win for a lot of us in the community who work with survivors of domestic violence. This was something I understand was controversial for Second Amendment rights. However, I do think that the ERPO law has been implemented mostly from a perspective of law enforcement. So typically how this will happen is that someone is being arrested. Prior to the ERPO law, the red flag law being put into place, it was very difficult to seize firearms from an individual who is mentally unstable. I think that law enforcement generally will call it in to the judge, and the ERPO phone, actually, practically speaking, in Washtenaw County, there's a phone called the ERPO phone that's monitored 24 hours a day, and the judges in our community will actually rotate that phone. So that phone is transferred on a weekly basis. So any judge who's going to be sitting in this seat has to be prepared to answer those calls and make a decision. These are important decisions, and I think weighing the risk to our community, it actually prevents people from not only possessing a firearm, but also purchasing a firearm. So if you had an individual who is mentally unstable, as a resident of this community, I think by far the red flag law, it protects our community in a way that outweighs it balances out and it outweighs any sort of rights anyone would have to a Second Amendment. The other thing is that the extreme risk protection order I know in Washtenaw County, we do a great job with this. In other communities, because of the fact that this became pretty restrictive and the judges were afraid, and I know Washtenaw County is a community that we have an amazing intelligent group of people here who were able to make this happen quickly. But this is something that I think, as an advocate for domestic violence survivors and as well as mental health issues, this is something that's been a really great help for us.
Thank you. This hopefully will be a short question. I understand that the average salary for a lawyer in Washtenaw County is about $100,000 a year. How much does the probate judge make?
So I think there's a cost of living adjustment that's every year. There's a statutory taxable cost of living adjustment, but I believe that the salary for 2026, there is actually a judge in the room who probably would know this more than me, but I think it's around 100. Not enough. Not enough is the answer. I believe it's around 183, and that's very similar to our district court judges, our circuit court and probate judges. Those are all controlled by statute. So our district court judges maybe make a little bit less, but the average I'd say is around, it's the same. Okay, it's around 180 to 185, I think, with the cost of living adjustment. 184. Okay, Judge Hammoud just corrected me. It's 184.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question, what is a guardianship diversion program? And what are the issues that you have to, do you support that?
So if I understand the question correctly, a guardianship diversion program would be a program that's aimed at preventing cases from going forward to the probate court. So I would also say that, so what I will say is, not that I'm trying to put myself out of a job or out of work, but we should do what is the least restrictive. And there are ways to avoid going to court for guardianship. Show of hands, how many have a durable power of attorney for healthcare? If you're over the age of 18, your hand should be up. That's one way to divert guardianship cases, is if you, as someone who is of sound mind and is not under duress, could execute a durable power of attorney for healthcare. That would be one way to avoid going to probate court for guardianship hearings. You could also execute a durable power of attorney for finances, which would avoid you having to go to probate court for conservatorship. So those are, if there are programs out there, actually that would be one of the things I would actually support, because it actually allows you as the individual to make a decision about who makes decisions for you when you're not able to. And that's important. We're talking about your autonomy. So we could do that. So guardianship diversion programs are things that I would support, and they're actually things that I would want to partner with others around our community to create more of.
Thank you. I agree with Alethia. Guardianship diversion is important because we want to use the least restrictive means possible. It's really important for me that people are able to maintain their autonomy and maintain their decision-making if they're available. I have done countless estate plans over the last 2 decades for families, and I've seen how they've been implemented through powers of attorney for financial matters as well as for health matters. The other thing that I've done is I've mediated a lot of cases that have avoided going to guardianships for families who have a disruption in who's agreeing to which care for the family. And I'll give you an example. Right now, I actually have a case that's in the Court of Appeals that I'm doing probate litigation where a family, a husband and wife, gave power of attorney to one of their children. Unfortunately, there's more than one sibling. So this is usually where the problem starts, where we have a disagreement between 2 siblings, 2 brothers, as to how the power of attorney is being used for mom and dad. Dad has passed away, mom is still surviving but has some memory issues. So what ended up happening is that the power of attorney is valid. It's a validly executed power of attorney, but the brother who doesn't like what's going on has now challenged that in the probate court. So our probate court judge who has heard this case said, look, we've got least restrictive means, we have a valid power of attorney, but we still have conflict over what's going on with the use of the power of attorney. And that's where ADR and mediation comes in. So I've mediated countless cases in probate court. Many of these involve very similar issues where families have a disagreement over a family member's treatment. And ADR, alternative dispute resolution and mediation, as a mediator, I'm a huge supporter of mediation because I've seen well over 90% of our cases avoid litigation. So there's multiple different ways to do it, but absolutely ADR works.
Thank you. Every case that is going to come before you is going to be unique. However, people have an expectation that consistency and fairness are going to be applied not only from case to case, but from judge to judge. How do you make that decision? Each individual is unique, but we need to have some level of consistency.
Okay, so the other thing I want to say is if I didn't use all my time last time, can I have some extra time this time? Okay, maybe not. So I think that cases, people are people. Every single case that comes before the probate court and any other, and the probate court judge and anyone else is going to be unique and specific. The thing is unique to that individual. The thing that doesn't change is the law, right? And so how you apply the law it does not change. The set of facts, the set of circumstances, those are the things that do change. And it requires someone who can actually appreciate that the law is the law. However, there's a certain amount of empathy, emotional intelligence, temperament, patience, tolerance that is applied to these cases that is incredibly important. Those are the things that I think differ among jurists, right? And what you want is someone on the bench who understands that each case is unique. Each person who is before you is an individual who is in need of your attention, who is in need of your experience, who is in need of your expertise in these areas. And so I think that there's a way to do that that best serves every person in Washtenaw County who comes before the probate judge. And you deserve to hear that, for a judge to hear your case based on your facts and to apply the law with equity, with fairness, with compassion, with sensitivity, and also with the right amount of experience. And that's what I would bring to these cases. There's a number of different things that go into making a decision. I think that my background in social work has prepared me for that. My work as a healthcare provider, as a clinician, has prepared me for that. I think that working and being a community member in Washtenaw County and doing the things that I've done in the community in terms of serving the members of this community actually speak to that as well. We haven't had a chance to really talk about that, but one of the things that I do want to talk about is all of the important things that have been done at Michigan Medicine that include sitting on the Anti-Racism Oversight Committee, making sure that everybody has access to opportunities. That's important to me. That's who I am. That's why I'm bringing that up. But it is. Do I need to go over a little? Okay.
I think she already gave you the over.
Okay.
I'm just applying the laws consistently.
That's actually really interesting that Norm said that. So absolutely, the judges. Whoops, sorry, that's okay, Chris. A judge's job is to apply the law. But I have to say a few things that I was thinking about. When people come into the courthouse, they are having quite possibly their worst day of their life. So I think we need to remember that this is not a place they want to be. The courthouse is a sterile environment. It's a stressful environment. People's lives are at stake. Their independence is at stake. And one of the things that you had mentioned about, people having unique cases. And I tend to think, yes, we'll apply the law fairly, but I want to be cognizant of a few things. One is many people that come into the court have trauma. They have trauma from their previous relationships. They have trauma in the relationship that they're in court with. And being trauma informed and being in the courtroom as an advocate for someone who's a survivor of domestic violence, they are going to react differently in a courtroom setting than someone who has not been through those same circumstances. And that's important that we remember that. I had a client once where I was doing a trial on a very serious allegation regarding domestic violence, and she started laughing because she was so uncomfortable being on the stand and being cross-examined that she started laughing. And the judge thought that she was acting out. But what it was is it was a trauma response. That was a response that she was having because of this fact. The other thing that I want to be cognizant of is, there's a lot of discretion for judges. And I say this in a number. One of them is sentencing in criminal cases. One of the things that I would be very careful about is understanding that there is a ongoing systemic racism in our courts that is documented. And when you're talking about unique individuals coming into the court, we have to look at the guidelines that are being used. Things like prior offenses and things like that, we have to be very careful. And so applying each law's cases is the most important to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have time for 2 questions from the general audience. So, okay, I see, do we have, I guess this is the only mic. Why don't you ask your question and I'll repeat it? Oh, there we go.
Thank you both for coming. This would be a heavy question in a slightly different spin. So the selection of who becomes probate judge requires very careful discernment. The judge has the awesome responsibility to properly adjudicate guardianship and conservatorship matters so as not to completely destroy the individual and even their whole family through misadjudication or deprivation of rights through failures of due process and not adhering to statutes. The judge will decide whether a person is so cognitively incapable that they must lose some or all of their rights because no help from a trusted decision-making supporter would provide them the ability to survive. Within the current Washtenaw probate system, there's a well-documented profusion of abuse exploitation via fraud on the court and financial and real estate fraud conducted by professional guardians and conservators, many of which are probate attorneys. I would like to ask each of you to tell me what you plan to do to clean that up so that people receive the help they actually need with the least intrusion and loss. Thank you. And I'm sorry if it seems like a harsh question. If you want to talk to me about it afterwards, I'd be happy to elaborate.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Randy Asplund.
Randy, thank you for asking that question. It's interesting that you brought that up because when I was actually meeting with one of our state senators, Jeff Irwin, there is actually a House bill right now that has been, that's okay. There's a House bill that's been proposed. It's a bipartisan effort to actually require home appraisals for any house that's being sold in a guardianship. And I thought this was really interesting because I, started exploring this idea of what can happen with real estate and what can happen in a situation like this. I also know that there was a case in Wayne County where there was some sort of issue going on with a judge that was working with a guardianship. And that, to me, is abhorrent. This is, again, these are the most vulnerable situations. I've reviewed the bill and I would support getting an appraisal to make sure that there's no malfeasance going on in that situation. So I hope that answers your question from my perspective.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your passion. What is happening now currently, one of the things that courts are doing in terms of before appointing guardians is doing some background check. I know in Washtenaw County that happens with every guardianship case that comes before the judge, is that there's a background check that's run to make sure that there's no outstanding criminal history, that there's not a warrant that's out for an individual who's proposing to become a guardian. There are those kinds of safeguards. I think that it's important to note that one of the things that's happening now and that I've been a part of is, for example, the Michigan Guardianship Association is actually lobbying for there to be more oversight for guardians. And I actually support that. Right now, guardians aren't required to be licensed. there is not that requirement, and they're taking care of some of the most vulnerable individuals in our communities, and they're not required. You need a license to fish. You should need a license to become a guardian. And so we were just talking to legislators in Lansing a few weeks ago, and I joined them. I joined that organization to basically ask for there to be more oversight from the state and perhaps from courts as well. So I hear you, and I appreciate the question, and I do think that there needs to be more oversight, and some of that work is being done. There are people who agree that those things really need to be that we need to challenge the way things are now and to do better. Thanks.
Thank you. We're running low on time, folks, so we're going to have to go to the next speaker. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Erica Peresman. Erica is a lawyer and has 25 years of experience in voter advocacy. And she's going to speak about the safety of our elections, which we've already seen is paramount here. Erica has a long background, 25 years in voter advocacy. She is currently a senior advisor to Promote the Vote, which is the organization that got the gerrymandering amendment passed and put into the Michigan Constitution. They also were passed another amendment that expanded voter rights. So it's very important. She was also, between 2019 and 2022, she was the director of the Michigan Democratic Party Voter Security Department. And she's really got a tremendous background. She graduated from University of Chicago, Phi Beta Kappa. Alas, though, she did graduate from Stanford Law School, JD. I went to Cal Berkeley as an undergrad, and people here in the Midwest may not realize this. The two are just across the San Francisco Bay from each other, and we despise each other, Cal and Berkeley. It's kind of like Michigan, Ohio State, only less civilized. But nevertheless, we really are privileged to have Erica here to speak. So I'd like to ask her to come up.
Thanks, Norm. I'll forgive you for going to Cal.
I told Eli that despite this, that we would remain cordial for at least through the meeting.
Absolutely. And one tiny correction, Promote the Vote was not involved in the anti-gerrymandering proposal. Promote the Vote actually, in 2018, there were two big proposals on the ballot. One was the anti-gerrymandering, and that was voters, not politicians. Yep. And the other one was Proposal 3, which got no reason absentee voting and same-day registration and all those other goodies into the Constitution. People confuse it all the time. It's okay. Anyway, I'm going to talk today about the threats to our elections this year and what we can all do about them and what people are already doing about them. And when I sat down to make some notes about this, I realized, it's a very long list, the list of threats. Okay, it really is, because this is an unprecedented situation. In all the years that I've been doing this, we've never been worried about the federal government interfering in our elections. That's just never been on the list. And this year, that's what we're mainly worried about. So it's a whole new situation out there, and it's constantly evolving. So there are new responses being developed all the time. And this is going to be happening all the way up to the November election. So I'm just going to be able to talk now about, what's been happening up till now. But, we're only in April. We got a long way to go until November. But what I want to assure you all is that there's been a lot of work done already at a lot of different levels to assure the security of our elections. So I'm talking about a lot of meetings that have been taking place. And I'm involved in like a tiny slice of them, but I know that there's a lot of meetings that have been taking place, like secretaries of state from different states meet about this. Attorney generals meet about it. There are meetings of our own clerks in Michigan, the county clerks, the municipal clerks, and they have what's called tabletop exercises where they talk about all of the different scenarios that could happen and what they would do about it. The nonpartisan organizations, the voting rights organizations, and there's a whole lot of them in Michigan, are also doing scenario planning. The Democratic Party, I don't work for the party anymore, but I'm sure the party and all of the party apparatus all over the country is doing that. So all of these things have been going on for quite a long time, and they'll continue to go on through the election. That makes me feel much better because, in years past, we often didn't start that kind of planning until a month or two before the election. So this has been going on since before the beginning of this calendar year. So everybody's aware of these threats and they're working on them. So, and you might not be aware of this because, it's not publicized. It's all happening mainly behind closed doors, which is how it should be happening. So that's the first thing I wanted to get across. So let's talk about what some of the threats are, and we're going to leave time for questions. Norm, are you going to let me know when it's about time for questions? Okay. So there is, I'm sure, some concern that the president would declare a national emergency in some way and declare martial law and that there wouldn't be an election. I've seen this all over the place. There is no emergency power that the president has under federal law that gives him power over elections. There just isn't any. And even the Insurrection Act, which is probably the most potent power that the president has under emergency powers, it doesn't permit troops that are deployed under the Insurrection Act to take illegal actions. And federal troops interfering with elections is definitely an illegal action. Okay, so that's like a baseline that we have to keep in mind. The president did not use the Insurrection Act when he federalized the National Guard and sent them to LA, Portland, and what was the other city? So he used another obscure federal law, and that's being litigated. Everything's being litigated, right? I mean, you can't even keep track of all the lawsuits. I can't tell you whether the president is going to try to invoke the Insurrection Act. I mean, this president, we don't know what he's going to do. He's so erratic and so unpredictable. I can tell you that the Insurrection Act has not been invoked since 1992, and that was at the request of the governor of California at that time in connection with the Rodney King riots. It could happen. But again, any troops that are deployed under the Insurrection Act cannot violate federal law. And we've got both federal and state laws that prohibit lots of people, but including federal troops, from interfering with federal elections. So just keep that in mind. There's also a lot of concern, and I have this concern. Everybody who works in election-related matters is concerned about ICE, federal troops, National Guard at polling places, because they've been talking about it. They, there's regular threats about this. The federal law that says you can't do this says that it's prohibited unless such force be necessary to repeal armed enemies of the United States. Okay, like we're unlikely to have that situation, right? It's also against federal law for federal agents or anyone to intimidate voters. And it's a state crime in Michigan and in most other states to intimidate voters. And we have in our state constitution, it was added with the Proposal 2 of 2022, a fundamental right to vote. And so interfering with that fundamental right to vote, harassing voters and so forth, is prohibited by our state constitution. And there's what's known as a private right of action associated with this. So anyone in this room can file a lawsuit, to stop that. So you're all thinking, I'm sure, well, so what? Trump and all of his people are constantly violating the law, and nothing happens. That is true. But what I can tell you is that voter intimidation is something that would draw immediate litigation. And when I say immediate, there are documents being drawn up as we speak, and they'll certainly be ready to be filed immediately. This is part of the planning that goes on with all of those groups that I was telling you about. So you figure out what are the likely things that are going to happen, and then you plan for them. So the lawyers that are involved in this sort of planning, they kind of game out what lawsuits are likely to happen, and they draft what's known as pleadings, the things that they would have to go into court and file if there was an emergency. They draft those. They're like ready to go, and then they just have to fill in things at the last minute. And 9 times out of 10, you never have to use those, but it's really good to have them on the shelf for when you need them. And like on the nonpartisan side, the ACLU of Michigan is very involved in this sort of planning. And if you followed this, you know that they're very willing to go into court when anything goes wrong, and they need to defend voters' rights. So there will be potentially litigation all over the country if this happens. And I feel like there's a lot of lawyers who know this law and know what they're doing, and they'll be ready for it. And like I said, the local clerks and the Secretary of State's office and the Bureau of Election, they're all worried about this too. And so they're planning for what might happen if this happens, and talking with the local clerks about what they should do. So there will be all these plans. And, you know, you just execute the plans. That's the great thing about planning. People, you know, people know what to do when the worst happens. I'm sure you've all read about the Department of Justice demanding voter rolls from various states. Just show of hands, people are aware of this. Yeah, okay. So Michigan is, of course, one of the states where these have been demanded. There's, I think, 17 states have already turned over their voter rolls, and the Department of Justice has sued 29 states and the District of Columbia. There's been 4 court rulings so far, and the administration has lost all 4 of them. There was just another one on Friday, Massachusetts. In all 4 cases, the federal judges said, no, you're not entitled to this information, because they want the unredacted voter files with all of our private data, you know, driver's license numbers, social security numbers, et cetera. And they won't tell anybody, you know, under oath, what exactly they want to do with this information. And this is a major threat, although we kind of just recently found out what they want to do about them with them because of this most recent executive order. It's a power grab, and it's very concerning because we've never had a federal voter list before, and there's good reasons for that. Because A, the Constitution says states administer elections, and B, there's the possibility of there being an accurate federal voter list is about 0, because the databases that they have are just not accurate. They can't be accurate because people are constantly becoming citizens with naturalization and so forth. And this new database, you know, the SAVE database that Doge worked on, the states that have used it so far, the error rates have been ridiculously high. So this is the database that they want to use to have this federal registry. No, no, this is not going to work. So the idea of it makes my blood run cold. So we've also got, you know, the whole SAVE Act that was being debated before the Save America Act, actually, before Congress went on recess. It was passed by the House. The Senate was debating it. They didn't get very far. We've got the ballot proposal that turned in signatures for Michigan, you know, to require documentary proof of citizenship in order to register or to vote. That is actually not a threat for this election because it wouldn't be in effect for this election. It's a major, major threat for future elections, but it wouldn't be in effect for 2026, even if it gets on the ballot this year. It wouldn't affect this year's election. And I think passage of the SAVE Act is very unlikely. So then that brings me to this new executive order, which is a big threat. I think there's 5 lawsuits that have already been filed against it. So we haven't seen any injunctions yet, but I think we'll see one pretty soon. It's a disaster. it's a total disaster, again, because of this idea of a federal registry and the idea that the U.S. Postal Service is going to decide whether you can get an absentee ballot or not. That's basically what this executive order says, because there's going to be this federal registry of U.S. citizens who are allowed to get ballots. And the U.S. Postal Service will have these lists, and only people that are on these lists would be able to be mailed ballots. I think that's a really bad idea, really bad. You know, the president clearly does not have the power to do this, and we're going to have to rely on the courts to stop him. I think there's a very good chance that there will be injunctions prohibiting this executive order from going into effect like there was the last ones. But, you know, it's all up to the courts right now for that one. There's a lot of disinformation out there, and disinformation itself suppresses voting. So I'm very concerned about that. You know, there are a lot of people who think that documentary proof of citizenship is already required to vote because there's been so much talk about it. It's not, but people think that it is. And so people who don't have it may decide, oh, I'm not going to vote in 2026. So that's a concern. The U.S. Postal Service itself is a concern because of some recent changes that have been made, basically that just delay the mail. In my neighborhood in Birmingham, we just don't get mail certain days of the week. I don't know what you find, but we just don't get mail, and it takes forever for the mail to get to us. And sometimes, you know, people will say, you know, did you get my holiday card? No, I never got your holiday card. I mean, there's just mail problems all over the place. So we're going to have to do a lot of voter education to make sure that people who do want to use absentee voting mail their ballots back in time, and maybe we encourage them to use drop boxes instead of the mail, and track their ballots. You know, if they're on the permanent mail ballot list, make sure that they know when they're supposed to be receiving their ballots, because I just don't think the mail is as reliable as it used to be. So we have to be concerned about that. And we have this absentee ballot case that's going to be decided by the Supreme Court of the United States that might hold that absentee ballots that arrive after Election Day, postmarked by Election Day, arrive after Election Day, can't be counted. Now, that's not a major issue for Michigan, because the only ballots in Michigan that are in that category are ballots from military voters and overseas voters, and there were only like 20,000 military and overseas voters total in Michigan in 2024. So, you know, not a huge issue for Michigan, although, you know, elections in Michigan have been decided by fewer than 20,000 votes, so I'm not discounting it, but it's been estimated that there are about 4 million voters in that category in the United States overall. So, you know, we'll see. I would love it if the Supreme Court would just not decide this case with respect to the 2026 election. And there is a principle that would allow them to do that. You don't normally make big changes to elections this close to the election. It's called the Purcell principle. But who knows what this Supreme Court will do. Let's see, where are we? There's also a threat the president has dismantled more or less the federal agency that deals with cybersecurity of elections. It's called CISA. And, it basically has very little funding anymore. And so the states used to work with this federal agency. It was bipartisan. States used to work with this agency on threats to election infrastructure. They can't do that anymore. They're all on their own now. So if there are foreign or domestic cybersecurity threats to our elections, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe that's a possibility. It certainly has happened in the past. And this agency was helpful to all the states in dealing with those threats. They're on their own now. And whether the states have the expertise and the funding to deal with this is an open question. I just don't know. I know that states are trying to fill that gap, but whether they have been able to, I really don't know. I think they're working on it. You want me to keep going with the threats? I know, it's depressing. It's depressing. I also worry about, there's all these election deniers and conspiracy theorists who work for the Department of Justice right now. That is really awful because they're sort of running the show. They've stopped pursuing cases that were being pursued before. They now have their own agenda, which includes they really don't like the idea of college students voting. They don't. That's one of Cleta Mitchell's. She's not in the administration, but she does a lot of advising of these folks. That's one of her biggest agenda items, like stop college students from voting. But these election deniers in the Department of Justice are a big concern. But we also have election deniers who are throughout our election infrastructure in Michigan. They're clerks, local clerks who are election deniers. There are poll workers who are election deniers. Sheriffs, members of boards of canvassers who certify the elections. So it's something that we've been aware of this for years and, try to monitor it. And, but, you can't prevent all of this from happening, but you can at least monitor it and try to deal with problems as they happen. But you can't, you can't always have poll observers, challengers in every place where elections are happening. There's just not enough volunteers for that. So we're going to get to, what can you do in a minute. So first of all, breathe. Breathe. Because as I said, people are working on this. It's not like, it's not like we're going to be unprepared. And, so much has already been done and it is going to continue to be done. So I think what we're going to see this year is a very different kind of community response. There's a lot of community groups all over the state that have already started to be mobilized because a lot of really vulnerable groups need to be protected so that they can get out there and vote. So particularly Black and brown people, because they're really the most vulnerable, given the presence of ICE in our communities. And I think we're going to see a different kind of community response. It's not going to be just challengers. How many people have been a challenger before in here? Okay, good. So yes, oh, well, they're all called challengers, but okay. But I mean, we're going to need that. We're going to need challengers more than in the past. But I think we're also going to need just a lot of eyes and ears on the ground in a lot of different places. And I think the challengers are going to possibly take on a more expanded role. I saw on the Brennan Center site, the Brennan Center is a national organization that does a lot of really great work in terms of voter advocacy. And I saw on their site that the League of Women Voters is looking at training people to escort voters in and out of polling places. Now, I don't know if that's happening in Michigan. You know, it might happen in Michigan. It might be something that's under consideration. But that's the sort of thing that I think is being looked at. It's never been looked at before. Like, we've never done that. But, you know, that's something that we might have to look at. So right now, the Democratic Party voter protection program is focusing on the special election in the 35th Senate district that's going to happen in early May. But after that, they'll start recruiting challengers for August and then November. There's already an interest form on their website. It's michigandems.com/voter protection. Want me to repeat that? michigandems.com/voter protection. And you can sign up and indicate what you're interested in, and they'll contact you to get involved. And, you know, both the Dems and the nonpartisans have hotlines. And I think the hotlines are going to be really important this year too, because people may call the hotline when they see voter intimidation. I mean, you know, a lot of times people call the hotline, I don't know where my polling place is, or, you know, things like that. But I think we're going to see the hotlines being used for different purposes this year. And so we're probably going to need more hotline volunteers, both on the partisan and the nonpartisan side. So this is not a year to sit on the sidelines. It's really not. I hope everyone can get involved in some way. You know, the hotline volunteer job is one that you can do from your home. I mean, if you're not able to be in a polling place or an early voting site. But, you know, like, we've got these multiple days of absentee ballot counting before Election Day. And that takes a lot of volunteers between the absentee ballot counting before Election Day, early voting before Election Day, and then the monitoring of the county canvases after Election Day, which the League of Women Voters organizes. I mean, it's a lot of days of volunteer time for every election. So just putting that out there, that whether you want to do it on the partisan side, which I assume most of this group wants to do, or the nonpartisan side, there's a really big need for volunteers this year. And everyone can really do part of voter education. As I said, there's just a lot of confusion out there relating to what the requirements for voting are going to be. Now, we don't know what they are right now because there's court cases still to be decided and the whole mess over this executive order, we don't know yet. But when we get closer to the August election and then the November election, we're going to need to be talking to our colleagues and friends and neighbors, everyone we know, to make sure that people aren't in a complete and total panic about voting. And people do look to like their trusted network to tell them what the real information is. We don't want them getting their information from, I don't know, the internet that is not, that's not reliable. Yes.
Legitimate information about what's happening in terms of voter protection. Your first part of your talk was calming. It's like we know what's coming. We have experts on it all over the country. Meetings are being written already. Where can people are scared to death, as you know.
I know.
One site. Brennan Center too.
The Brennan Center is a good site. Although it's, they've got it in like lots of different places. Yeah, it's not like you can find everything on their landing page. I found that they have these little documents called explainers, and I found that the different explainers were very helpful, but you have to go to like the topics and then find the explainers related to each topic.
One page. Are you worried about this or you worried about that? What information?
I will see if I can find something like that, and maybe if there isn't one, I will write it. Yeah, because I'm not sure that there is something that puts it all in one place.
Yeah, because then people are like feeling why bother to vote? It's not counted, blah blah, all that.
Yeah.
We need to be able to send that out.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I'm a senior advisor to Promote the Vote, and the nonpartisans are part of a big coalition. So Promote the Vote itself is a coalition organization. Yeah, that's the nonpartisan voter protection hotline, 866-R-VOTE. So in Michigan, Promote the Vote coordinates the volunteers for the 866-R-VOTE hotline. Oh, sure. Yeah, the question was about the nonpartisan coalition. They're probably working with Promote the Vote and the Promote the Vote coalition. There's a huge number of organizations involved, and they meet regularly and talk about plans.
We
Yeah.
have time for one question.
I've been on it for 10 years. But back when Gurwitz was running this stuff, we had already started having twice a week, 300 students at a time, teaching them about how to do voter protection at U of M Law School. Nothing like that is happening this cycle. Why not? And how are we going to get it started before the students are gone?
Well, I don't work for the party, so I can't. Well, she was a volunteer. I know her. She's a good friend of mine. The question is, when are we going to get the students trained to be voter protection volunteers? Because it hasn't started yet. I honestly don't know because I'm not working on the partisan side right now. But as I said, the voter protection folks at the Michigan Democratic Party are training people right now to work on the special election in the 35th Senate District in May. And they told me, my successor there told me that after that, they will start training people for August and November. I'm sorry, I just don't know. I would expect that they'd probably do training for Michigan students in the fall. That would be my best guess.
Really great. Really happy you came. So we'll turn it over to Teresa.
All right. Don't you feel better? I definitely feel better. Thank you, Erica, for being here. Okay, I just have a few things. Everybody wants to get out in the sunshine. Me too. I just want to say, college Dems who are here, wave, stand up. They will not be suppressed. It's great to have you guys here. Okay, just 4 things. 1, sign up to be a precinct delegate. If you're already volunteering, be a precinct delegate. Are they still here? John's here. Okay, John's here. He's got the applications, the affidavits, and he's got his seal. So fine, thank you, notary seal. Okay, MMOP, Mop Up Michigan. If you sign the petition, even if you think you've signed it before, sign it again and pick up a petition to circulate. We need to get money out of politics. That's what that's about. 3, yes, we're worried about the mails. They've been threatening that for a long time, and it's finally the chickens are coming home to roost. Nevertheless, get on the permanent mailed ballot list because at least you'll get your ballot. It just might not be 45 days in advance, which is what it's supposed to be, right? Yeah, they'll mail it 45 days in advance. So you start looking for your ballot. I'm on it. It's so handy, and then you can vote any way you want. You should put it in your drop box rather than in the mail, or you can walk it to your polling place and walk it to the clerk's office, whatever. But then you've got your ballot, and you can use it any way you want. What was my volunteer? We are doing so much, and as is often the case, it's a small group of volunteers working extra hard. And we always need more people. So go to the website, washingtondems.org, and there's a button at the top, volunteer, and there's a whole great new form because we got our CRM up and going. Thank you, Kevin Versak and others. And we can put you in the place that you want to be. And you want a tour of our new office? Rayanne, raise your hand. Follow Rayanne, and she will show you our new office. And I think that's it. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, as always, Jim Russo, for humaning the sound system. Thank you. I know your name, Norm. Norm and Chris for making the meeting happen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Take care, everybody.